good day today. Kind of wanted to wait to put this one out so I could give you guys a PSA reminder here. Tomorrow is Mother's Day. Just want to remind you guys of that. So I kind of waited until today to post this. So, but hey, let me just share with you real quick. It's something I've actually talked about it at one point in time at an All-Pro Dad thing that I did. But it's actually a really good thing. I know tomorrow is Mother's Day, but none of us are mothers. So might as well talk about, some men stuff. So I just want to share with you real quick a verse out of 1 Thessalonians chapter 2. 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, starting in verse 10. Paul kind of lays out for us in God's word what a father is and what a father should be. So 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, starting in verse 10. Starting in verse 11. Starting in verse 11. 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 11. It says this. It says, as you know, like a father with his own children. So that lets us know right there that Paul's going to explain to us what a father would do with his own children. So he tells us in verse 11, it says, as you know, like a father with his own children. And then verse 12, he kind of lays out what a father would do. Now he's talking about what himself and Timothy was doing to the church here for the church here at Thessalonica, but he equates it to what a father should do. So it gives us at least a however you want to look at it, an outline or a guide of just a few things that a father needs to be to his children. So I think it's kind of cool. So verse 11 starts in verse 11. It says, as you know, like a father with his own children, we encouraged, we comforted, and implored each one of you to live worthy of God, who calls you into his own kingdom and glory. So that gives us an insight of just three simple things that we need to do for our children. Now listen, I'm not saying here being a perfect dad. I try to look at this and I do the best I can. And oftentimes I fail at this completely. But let me just give you a little encouragement, guys. It doesn't matter if your kids are 9 months old or 29 years old. However old they are, they're still your children. You're still their father. And we need to set a godly example for what they should be and what they should do. And the first thing that he tells us is, as a father with his own children, we encourage. So as a father, we should encourage. Now listen, I'm just as bad. I'm just as competitive as the next guy. When I coach baseball or football or whatever I'm doing, I want to win. And I have to many times stop, back up, and realize, hey, listen, I need to encourage these young men on the high school football field or on the track, on the track meets, on the track, or on the baseball field or basketball court. I need to encourage them more than I need to tell them down. Now, part of encouraging is also correcting, but you have to learn to, we have to learn to correct in a loving way. And that's the biggest thing. We just need to be able to correct our children in a loving way so they know that we're encouraging them, not putting them down. But it says that the first thing it says that we encourage. So as fathers, we're supposed to encourage our children. Encourage them. One thing that I've always kind of followed when I coached any sport, and a coach taught it to me. One of my old coaches taught it to me was, anytime you get give a negative, you give a positive behind it. It's like it would be, hey, you completely whiffed on that block, and if you'd have made that block, we'd have got a touchdown. But your footwork was good. Keep that footwork, but make sure you get your block and you hold it, right? So you give them something that's correcting them, a negative, but then you also give them a positive. Hey, but you did do this, and that's something I'm going to be honestly, guys. I'm going to be with you and be honest with you and real with you and just say I struggle with that. I have a hard time. Sometimes I forget to just give that little, encouraging word after I correct both my boys. So I have to watch myself, and I try to make sure I do that, and I don't always do that. So the first thing we need to be is encouragers. As fathers, as husbands especially, we need to encourage. If it says you're a father in here, that means you're a husband. So if you're a father and a husband, you need to also encourage your wives, in the things that they do. The second thing it says, and comforted. That's a hard thing for guys. I don't know about a lot of you. I know that a lot of us men, were raised, you don't show any emotion. You don't cry unless a bone's sticking out and you need to go to the hospital or you cut something off, right? That's the only times you cry. You don't show emotion. But there's times we need to realize that one of the shortest verses in the Bible is Jesus wept. And if it was okay for Jesus to cry, I think it's probably okay for us too. Because I don't know any one of us that would be watching this video that could endure what he endured for the reason he endured it, which was me and you. So, it says that we need to be comforted. There's going to be times, when our children, when they're crying about something that we look at and go, why are you crying about that? What is wrong with you? There's no reason for you to be crying about something that stupid, right? But to them, it matters. And I struggle with that sometimes, because sometimes I'm looking at some of the things that they do and I'm like, dude, why are you even concerned about that? That doesn't even matter. But to them, it matters. So we need to make sure that we are comforting our children when in good times and in bad times, because there's going to be bad times, and we're going to have to be there to show them that it's okay to show that emotion, but to also be there to comfort them. And for especially us that have sons, we need to make sure that they understand that it's okay to show emotion. It's okay to need comfort from someone else. And the same thing goes, like I said before, if you're a husband, you're a father. If you're a father, you're a husband. And you need to be willing to comfort your wife, even though sometimes you're looking at them going, does it really matter what she said about you at work? You do your job and that's all that matters. But honestly, sometimes it affects people differently, and we need to be willing, whether we think it's goofy or not, we need to be willing to comfort our kids and our wives. And honestly, guys, we need to be better. I need to be better at comforting my sons instead of telling them, I grew up, my grandfather told me, suck it up. If, like I said, if a bone wasn't sticking out or you didn't cut something off, there wasn't no reason to do anything but rub some dirt on it, suck it up and keep going. So, and I'm sure many of you are the same way. But we need to be willing to comfort our kids when it really comes down to, especially those things that are important, that do matter. And then the last thing that Paul tells us is that we need to implore our children to live worthy of God. Now, how do we implore our children? What does implore mean? Well, to implore somebody is to urge strongly. We need to urge strongly our children, especially our young men, but our young women too. But we need to implore them, especially our young men, we need to implore them to live a life worthy of God. Live a life worthy of what God's done for them and what God sacrificed for them. So we need to make sure that we are encouraging them. We are strongly, that's what implore means, strongly urging them to live a life worthy of what God's given them. But how do we do that? The easiest way to do that, fellas, I'm going to be transparent with you. The easiest way for us to implore our children to live a life worthy, live the life worthy that God's given us, is for us to live it in ourselves. We need to live our lives in such a way that they have an example to follow. So we need to realize, and most of you probably already realize this, but some of you may not. I'll share a little piece of wisdom with you. I don't have a whole lot, but I got a little bit of wisdom for you. Your kids are watching everything you do, and they're going to mimic the things that you do. So we need to, for us to be able to implore them to live a life worthy of the calling that God has on their life, we have to be willing to live that same life and live a life worthy that way. And then Paul gives us, these are things that a father would do. These are things that a father should do. But then he gives us the reason why. And it says, starting in verse 12, it says, we encouraged, comforted, and implored each one of you to live worthy of God. And then it says this, who calls you into his own kingdom and glory. So why should we live a life worthy of God? Honestly, let's be honest, guys. It's much easier to live a life like everybody else than it is to live a life worthy of the calling that God's placed on you. It's much easier to swim downstream than upstream. And many of especially our teenage boys and girls, our high school boys and girls, fall into that. It's easier to just go along with the flow and to go downstream rather than upstream. But guys, we need to encourage them. We need to comfort them when things don't go their way because they're swimming upstream. We need to be prepared to encourage them in that. and comfort them in that. But we also need to be living a life that God would say we are worthy, so that they can have an example to follow. Hey guys, listen, I hope that's helped you out a little bit, giving you a little something. Like I said, I ain't got a whole lot of wisdom, but I got a little bit. And most of it's gained from somebody else that said it before. But listen, guys, hopefully we can get together soon and get this men's ministry up and running. But until that time, guys, listen, if just I want to encourage you just to live a life worthy of the calling that God has in your life. And that calling is to be a father, and to be a godly father and a godly example to your children and to your wife, and to lead your family well. So guys, listen, hopefully that helped you out a little bit. Make sure we're out there encouraging, and not even just our own kids, but just kids and young men and young women in general, that we're encouraging them, we're comforting them, but most of all, that we are imploring them to live a life worthy of God. We want to make sure that they step up and they follow God the way that we know they should. And to do that, we have to step up first. So guys, I'll end it like this. It's time for us as men, and especially Christian men, to step up and live a life worthy of God. All right. Can't wait to see you guys. Don't forget, tomorrow is Mother's Day. And don't forget, tomorrow morning at 9:30, we're having a drive-in service again. And we've actually got it now. If it's hot, love bugs, raining, whatever, it's okay. You can roll your windows up, leave the air conditioner on. We bought an FM tuner so you can actually listen to the entire service on your radio from the parking lot. All right. Can't wait to see you guys soon. Hopefully I'll see you guys tomorrow. Hopefully it'll be a good day. And don't forget to thank your mothers and your wives tomorrow for Mother's Day. All right. See you guys later.